Tonight I'm going to speak to you from the 18th chapter of John. If you have a New Testament, we'll be there. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and then we'll be in the 18th chapter. The title of the sermon tonight is called Not of This World. Not of This World. Let me read you the 36th verse, and I think you'll sort of begin to get an idea about where we're going to go with this. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." Now the sermon tonight, I want to talk with you about it. I'm trying to make a case to you that we really don't belong here. We're kind of out of place in this world. We really just don't fit. And if you've ever wondered why you don't fit into the world, it's because you're not supposed to. All right? You're not supposed to fit in to this world system. We're different from that. And so let me explain what I mean by that. Now we are creatures created to live in this environment. That is the earth environment. We are made of these bodies. They're made to walk around on this planet, to breathe this air, to drink this water, to eat the nourishment from this planet. Well, that's the way we were made. But we were also created with a spirit that at the same time, now you need to get this. At the same time as we're created to walk around physically here, our spirit is made to inhabit another dimension at the same time. We are multi-dimensional. We're multi-created beings. We're two in one. We live in two dimensions at the same time. Now that's mind-blowing, but what you have to realize that we do live in that sort of a way. Now our physical body ties us here. I mean, we're tied to this, and our spirit body ties us to the spiritual world. We're tied to the two because of that. Now, when our physical body dies, then our spirit body is released to go home. And we're not tied together any longer. Death separates those two, and so we get to go on to be with the Lord. Now, we have a physical body for this and a spiritual body for the other. Now, that's exciting to me to know that I've got a spirit body waiting for me, or already exists. I'm already living in it. I don't know what it's like. I can't see it, but I have a spirit body. I live in a physical body. I can see it, but I can't see my spirit body, but I have them both. Now, my physical body is keeping me and you and I in this physical dimension, and so whenever it dies, my body dies, then we're free to go home. Now, at the end of the age, Jesus is going to return. And when He gets back, He's going to reunite. Now, get this. This is important. This is deep theology. Now, I'm not just throwing this out. This comes from a lot of study I've been doing recently. That when Jesus comes back, He's going to reunite the two dimensions. He's going to bring heaven and earth together. They're going to be one. No longer are they going to be divided, physical and spiritual. They're going to be brought back together, and we're going to live in a way that's beautiful and joyful. The reason I'm talking about this, I read a thing the other day that really got my interest and got me thinking. And this guy speculated that in the Garden of Eden, the two dimensions were together. There were not the two dimensions. There wasn't a division of heaven and earth. They were one and the same. And God would walk on earth with His children, and we would walk with God. We would share that experience. Is like it was one dimension. And then when we sinned, that's when we fell. That's another way to understand it. Then we moved into this second, or this earthly physical dimension, and the spirit one moved in another. So Jesus is going to restore unity and wholeness to our lives again. Now read the 17th chapter of John. We're going to preach out of 18, but read 17, and we're going to pick up at about verse 13. "I am coming to you now, but I say these things while I'm still in the world." Now, let me back you up just a moment and let you understand what's happening here. John chapter 17 is the Lord's Prayer. Now I know we know the others, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. But that's the model prayer. All right? This is the recorded prayer that Jesus prayed on the night before His crucifixion. This is the night He prayed this prayer to the Father. He said these words, I'm coming to you now, but I say these things while I'm still in this world, in this dimension, in this physical dimension, so that they may have the full measure of my joy within them. Verse 14, I have given them your word, and the world has hated them. For they are not of this world any more than I am of this world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They're not of this world, even as I'm not of this world. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. Now, I don't know about you. I read that this week with just new ears, new eyes. It made more sense to me than I've picked up in a long time. When Jesus said, I'm not of this dimension and you're not of this dimension. We don't belong here. But we're in this world. And Jesus prayed, said, Father, protect them while they're here in this world. And He said, but I'm coming home to you. Let me read Romans chapter 12 while we're on this subject. Romans chapter 12. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world. Let me say it again. And do not be conformed to this dimension, to this Eden, to this world, to this life on earth. Don't be conformed to this one. But it says, but be transformed by renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. Okay, you've got these two concepts going here. You've got a confirmation and a transformation. Now I want to back this up and let you get it. What happens to us if we're not careful is we get conformed to this world. Have any of you ever poured like the things you put in a kiln, what do you call that, clay? Ceramics, yeah. Has anybody done ceramics? And you take the ceramics and you pour it into a mold, and it conforms to that mold and takes on the form or whatever the mold will make. And so then you open the form and then you clean it or whatever, and then you paint it or whatever, and then you put it in a kiln and burn it and get it hot. Anyway, but when you pour that clay or that liquid into that form, it conforms. Now, what Jesus is saying to us here, and what actually the writer of Romans is saying, we are not to be poured into the world's mold. We're not to be in this world's mold, okay? But then the other word, the transverse word is conformed. But he said, don't be conformed, be transformed. You get it? There's conformed and transformed. Now, the transformed is the word we get this is called the metamorphosis. That's the Greek root word, of the word transform. But don't be conformed, but be changed, transformed into your heavenly creature, heavenly being. Now, you know the little worm crawls up the tree in the summertime and spins a cocoon, and then after that he comes out a butterfly. Well, he's metamorphosized. He morphs into a new creature. And that's the same way we are. We're not to be conformed, but we're to be transformed by the new birth. Now, the Bible instructs us not to let the world, the mold of this world, form us into a worldly thing. We're not to be formed by this dimension, but we're to hang on to our spiritual dimension. We're not to let this earthly dimension mold us, but to hang on to what the Lord is going to do with us in the future. Now, the quality of these two bodies we inhabit, it's difficult to compare. In fact, it's impossible with our human language to compare the two different bodies. But now, what is very, very clear from the Bible is that our next body is extremely better than this one. Okay? It's better. And we don't know much about it. It says we don't know what we shall be, but when He appears, we shall be like Him. We don't know all that that's going to be, but everything that I read in my Bible tells me it's just going to be better. This new body that's coming, and so I'm kind of looking forward to that. Now, as I said, our temporary home is here in this dimension. Our permanent home is in the spirit dimension. This is the short time stuff. This is really temporary. But our eternal home is spiritual. Now let's compare time to eternity. Our time here is short, but our time there is long. It's forever. Okay. Unlimited. Now the physical life is poetically called a dream. It's just like a dream. It was like we went to sleep and had a short nap and we had a dream. Well, they tell us that when we get to heaven and we look back on our life here, no matter if it was long, if it was 100 years, or if it was short, it said this will just seem like a dream that passed in the night. It'll be temporary, and that's how we'll feel in comparison to eternity. So let's just remember, we're not of this world. Now, where I'm going to take you with this is less joyful and comforting, but I've got to take you some places tonight that some things I have to tell you. But remember, we're not of this world. We're from another place. So let's follow Jesus here on his last day and learn the important lessons of not living in this world. We are tonight here remembering this is the night, Maundy Thursday. This is the night that Jesus was taken in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the night before the crucifixion, which happened on the Sabbath. Let's read a little of the background here to kind of see where we are. Then the Jewish, we're in the 18th chapter now of John, and we're reading verse 28. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace, because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. Now, when does the Passover begin? Sundown Friday night. Sundown Friday night. This is sun up Friday morning. Are you with me now? So they didn't want to do anything to be ritually unclean. And that's what they're worried about, because they want to make sure it would be like not getting to go to Christmas dinner at Grandma's house. I mean, you don't want to miss Passover meal. It was special for the whole year. So they didn't want to miss that. So they made sure they were able to eat Passover. Verse 29. So Pilate came out to them. They couldn't go into the palace, right? Get that? They couldn't go in because that'd be ritually unclean if they did. So Pilate came out to them. Are we communicating? All right. And he came out and he asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Now, you and I are not intended to fit in to this world system. It was never intended to be. It was never. And so I think tonight we feel like sometimes we just don't fit in. And I talk to people, it seems like every day, they say, I don't know, this world's changed so much. I don't know. I don't think I even fit. I don't know what's going on. I'm confused. They're changing the rules every day, and right is wrong, and up is down, and forward is backward, and I don't know what's going on. Let me tell you something. You're not supposed to. We're not of this world. We're of another world. Just keep that in mind. We're only here for a short time. Now, Christians, we live as immigrants in this world. Now, what is an immigrant? Well, an immigrant, let's think about it. Somebody from another country who lives in a country they're not familiar with. They don't know how to speak the language very well. All right? And they don't know the customs. They don't understand the rituals. They don't get it. They're not from there. Their culture's just different. So that's why you are having trouble fitting into this world, because you're living as an immigrant, and that's the way you're supposed to. So To whom then, if we're immigrants and we live on earth, but we really are not from here, we're from another place and we're just here for a short time, who do we show loyalty to? How do we express loyalty? Are we American citizens? Are we members of the great state of Missouri? How do we show loyalty? Now that's what we're going to talk tonight a little bit about, because I wanted you to see that we are dually formed creatures, but we live in this real world and we also live in a spirit world. So what are our responsibilities? Where do our loyalties lie? So it may get a little nitty-gritty tonight, all right? I may define some things a little thinner than you're used to hearing them defined, but I want to get into this tonight about what we should be loyal to. To whom should we show loyalty? Let me ask you this question then. Are we to be loyal to the government of the United States of America? Now, let's read. We'll answer that question. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Now, you have to see that Jesus' crowd, the crowds around him, they were proclaiming him king of the Jews. The reason they were doing that is because they had long been dreaming of and looking forward to the Anointed One, the Messiah, to come and to lead them in a revolt against Rome and to lead them to become a world power again, like King David was back 1,000 years before that time. See, they were looking for this military, this charismatic leader to come, overthrow Rome and restore it. And so they've been calling Jesus King of the Jews, you're King of the Jews. Now they misunderstood entirely who he was. They missed it all the way around. Jesus never claimed to be King of the Jews. And then he's going to clarify for old Pilate here in just a moment about what's important and what isn't important. Pilate was in fact the king or ruler of the Jews under Rome. Pilate knew that. And I think he was just clarifying for himself. If you tell me you're king of the Jews, I can have you killed, boy, just like that. No problem. So I think Pilate said, "Hey, are you king of the Jews? Are you the one? Because I'm king of the Jews. Are you king of the Jews? If you're the king of the Jews, we got a big problem here." So that's what I think he was getting ready to do. Now, before we move further into this, let's keep reading the Bible. Boy, the Bible's unhandy sometimes about telling us truth, you know. It tells us how we're supposed to live and what we're supposed to do. Okay, let's read Romans again, 13. Peter wrote, "Submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every authority instituted among men." Whether to the king as the supreme authority or to governors who are sent by him, God, to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. Okay, see where we're going with this. Now, Jesus was a loyal Jewish citizen. He was loyal. He was a Jewish citizen. He was loyal. He did not come to overthrow government. He didn't overcome to establish David's line. I mean, he will eventually, but he didn't come at that time to establish David's line. He came to be the suffering servant and to die for the sins of the world. He encouraged his followers to pay taxes to Rome. Remember that story? One time one of the apostles, they asked him, well, do we need to go pay our taxes? And Jesus said, well, let me give you an example. He said, go down there to the beach and get that fish, get that fish there out of the minnow bucket, out of the seine. I don't know where the fish was. He said, go down and get that fish and open his mouth. And he looked in his mouth and there was a Roman coin in the fish's mouth. Kind of like a miracle. And Jesus said, what does that coin say? And he says, it's Caesar's. He said, well, then you give Caesar's what's Caesar's and you give God's what's God. All right. So Jesus clarified here, we are to live by the rules of this world. He lived under Roman rule. He lived by Roman rules. But his loyalty, ultimate loyalty, was to another kingdom. Now, we're to be loyal to the government as far as we can go. We're to be loyal to that. But when my government asks me to do something that is counter to the kingdom of God, I got a problem. I got a problem. I cannot follow my government and break the rules of the kingdom of God. I got a problem when my government asks me to do that. I've got to decide what's important. I believe the hand of God was on our founding fathers. Now I know, I've read it, I've understood the history. I know they weren't perfect, and I know that they weren't all Christians, and I know that. I understand all that. But I want to tell you something. That God has His hand on our government, our country, our founding, and on our Constitution that these men wrote and founded. See, now here's my problem. When my government uses my taxes to pay for an abortion, I got to overturn that murderous policy. I got to see that gets fixed. I can't I don't want to send my tax money to pay for to kill somebody's baby. Now see, I got a problem right there. Don't you see where I'm already in trouble? And this has been a real issue with me for a long time. Now when my government requires me to give God's blessing on the union of two people of the same sex, it's a bridge too far.
That's right.
I can't. I love them. I mean, I'm all for them. I love homosexual people. I hang out with them. When I was in college with them, I didn't know there was so many till I was in the music department at SMS, you know. But I met a whole, and I didn't, you know, I was a homophobic right first, but I got over it real fast. That doesn't bother me at all. They're just people. They're messed up a little more. I'm messed up too. So, you know. But when we get to this point where the government wants me as a pastor to give your blessing as a church on that union, I can't do it. Now I'm going to tell you something right now. That's going to get us in trouble.
Yep.
I hope I'm too old and I'm dead before it really gets to be a problem. But it will be a problem for this church too. Now next week, those of you who live in Springfield get to vote on an issue. And it has tremendous implications in this area. Don't stay home and leave this to others to vote. I'm not telling you how to vote, did I? I'm just saying you don't stay home, leave it to somebody else to decide. Now I don't know how to say this. I'm considering the possibility of no longer performing marriages of any kind. Why am I doing that? I haven't said I'm going to do it yet, but I'm thinking about it. Because if I don't marry anybody, I can keep this church out of trouble a little longer. Now I know that, and again, don't get me wrong, I haven't said I'm not going to marry people yet. I'm just saying I'm praying about it, I'm thinking about it, but I cannot do that. Now, when my government requires my children to study the Quran and weave prayer rugs in social studies, I can no longer support that kind of education system either. Okay, just wanted you to know there has to be a limit. I'm a member, I'm a proud citizen of the United States of America, but I'm a kingdom citizen, first of all.
That's right.
I'm a child of God.
Right.
My loyalty's there. Okay, now we need to we have to deal with this issue of to whom are we to be loyal. And I'm going to talk a little bit about political correctness and social pressure. Let's read verse 34, so you don't think I'm just making this all up on my own. Let's read verse 34. Is that your own idea, Jesus asked? Or did others talk to you about me? Now get what's going on here. Jesus said to him, they were talking together, and he asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus said, "Where'd you get that idea? Did you pick that up on Facebook? Where'd you get that idea that I'm the king of the Jews? Where'd you get that? What does that come to you from socially? How did you get that?" Verse 35. "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Okay, so there is some political pressure, political correctness and pressure being applied here to Pilate as much as anybody. And Jesus asked him, said, "Where'd you get this information?" So public opinion was powerful, and it had driven this whole thing. I know who was driving, okay? I know the God the Father was driving this. I know Jesus was on his way to the cross. I understand that. But the human element here was involved. Public opinion was pushing this forward. And public opinion is powerful. Public opinion is powerful. And if we're not careful, we can get on the wrong side of it as Christians and really be in trouble. Let me give you some politically correct statements, words, thoughts, ideas. No longer is anyone drunk. If they're, you can't say they're drunk. They're spatially perplexed. People aren't insane. Don't be calling people insane. They're comprehensibility selective. Bisexual is sexually non-preferential. Bald is comb-free. A girl is pre-woman. Oh, don't call people fat anymore either. No, fat is calorically enhanced. Yeah, and you can't call anybody an airhead either. It's not nice to call people airheads. That is reality impaired. So you're just reality impaired. Now, if you are a hunter, you don't tell people they're hunters anymore. That's not politically correct. They're animal assassins. They kill Bambi. Don't call old people either. Not good. We're just gerontologically advanced. And don't make fun of deaf people either. They're just visually oriented. Drug addiction, chemically challenged, and ugly. Hey, don't call people ugly anymore. They're just attractively impaired. Public opinion is turning against the Jews and the Christians in our world. Today, in Kenya, there's a massive killing of Christians in a Christian school. And this is happening every day. At the current rate of change, we will soon see a time when the villains of this nation will be its people of faith and those who believe in the Constitution. The people of faith will someday be its villains. I read an article just this week that said that they speculate that in the Middle East there will not be one Christian living in the Middle East in 2 years. Now, of course, we know God's plan for Israel. And we know how that's going to go. But were it not for that, there wouldn't be a Christian living in the Middle East. Our world's being turned upside down. Who's behind this? Well, we can point fingers, but we all know who's behind it. It's the plan of the devil, and he's getting us. We are to be loyal to the king of a kingdom that is not of this world. Let's read verse 36. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." Jesus said, "My kingdom's not from here." Yeah, I'm a king, but I'm not king of here. I'm king someplace else. We're to live as immigrants. We're to be in this world, but not to be of this world. Do you get that? You've all heard that 1,000 times. But I need to remind you that we're to live in this world. We have to live in it. We're here. We're born. We live in it. We buy with its resources. We eat its food. We drink its water. We live. We're consumers of this world. We're in it, but we're not of it. What does that mean? That means that our loyalties are somewhere else. We live here, but we're loyal to something else. The real battle of this that we're going to have to fight in this world is to be conformed to this world. We cannot buy into this world. Keep your values and your ethics locked up in a heavenly morality and in a heavenly conformation. The real battle we fight as believers is against selfishness, carnality, and being conformed to this world. Why didn't Jesus' followers fight to keep him from being crucified? Why did they just stand back and let that happen? It was because it was God's will that he die on the cross. It was God's will, part of the plan. Why did Jesus not defend himself and accept crucifixion? He just accepted it like a lamb that was led to the slaughter. He didn't open his mouth. He was quiet. He didn't defend himself because he was not of this world. And he was the king of the next. Let me say again, if you're having trouble fitting in this world as a Christian, that's the way it's going to be. This world is not our home. We're just passing through.
Right.
Our treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. An old pastor friend of mine, been gone a long time, but Marvin Pringle, Mama would know what I'm talking about. Marvin, he'd say, son, don't dig your tent stakes in too deep. I like that. Don't dig your tent stakes in too deep. We're not staying here long. We're going to pull these tent stakes up and we're going to go home. Friends, tonight, live to make this world run on the same rules that the next world runs on. Let me do the Lord's Prayer with you. Our Father which art in heaven, I'm not praying, I'm just reciting it. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Get this now. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on this earth as it is in heaven. In this dimension as it is in that dimension. Conform and transform. Make Jesus king and live by heaven's laws. Father,